This is module 3 of my practical theory course, and if you haven't watched modules 1 and 2, just go watch them, because again this is going to be related to some of those topics that we covered and some of those concepts, so it's going to be easier for you to understand what we're talking about. So if you're done with those, well, let's start with the new one, and this is all going to be about patterns and how we can use patterns in order to create something more interesting. Now, you probably remember how in module 2 we explained that you can use 2-note chords in order to make the listener, again, know what's going to happen in terms of chord progression, and it's not just power chords that you move like blocks, but something more interesting. Well, we can do the same thing with patterns here. Like, we can use patterns in order to stay, for example, in key. So you can use them over scales, you can use them over arpeggios, you can use even different patterns for like following the chords, and just like with tapping, you can instead use patterns to follow the chords, not tapping to follow the chords, but the idea is kind of the same. So let's just start with something easy. First, we're gonna start with a few scale patterns that we can use, and it's very nice to know patterns, because this is the easiest way to start shredding. So if you've always wanted to start shredding but you sound out of key, here's what you can do. First, you can play the scale in thirds, and now what I mean by that is that you can play the scale by skipping one note, then going one back, skipping one note, going one back, skipping one note, and going one back. Now, if you didn't understand what I mean, here's a practical example. Say we're gonna play again the G major scale. What I mean is that you can play G, then skip the A note and go to B, then go one back, so A, skip the B note and go to C. So we have G, B, A, C. If you want the tabs, you can always get a membership for my Discord server, where you have these courses and many more. But also, if you don't have the money for that, even though it's just $5 a month, no worries, there's no pressure. Just look at my fingers and learn them from here, from the screen. So the next thing that we can do in terms of scale shape is that we can play them in sequence fourths. Now, what is that? Is really a small fraction of the scale. We go, for example, we just play a small fraction of the scale, we go 3 notes back, we play 4 notes, we go 3 notes back, 4 notes, 3 notes back. So like, imagine you're going on a ladder and you're climbing up the ladder. You climb 4 steps up, you jump 3 steps back, 4 steps up, 3 steps back, 4 steps up, 3 steps back, and so on. I was gonna say 3 frets back, but it doesn't really make any sense in terms of the ladder analogy. So here's the practical example with notes. For example, again, we are gonna start in G major, and we're gonna play G, A, B, C, go 3 notes back. So now we're not gonna start from G, but A. So G, A, B, C, A, B, C, D, B, C, D, E, C, D, E, F sharp, D, E, F sharp, G. And you can also play that descending, because I showed it to you ascending in the ascending way, but you can also play that the same logic, like the same idea, but descending. Say, for example, we're gonna start on a C note, and we're gonna play C, B, A, G, then we're gonna play B, A, G, F sharp, and so on. And another cool pattern that doesn't really need much explanation, but it sounds super cool, and you can play it all over the scale, and it's kind of a long pattern, so that you need to get used to it just on on the two first strings, and then you can expand to the whole scale. But it's kind of long, so that it sounds like you know what you're doing, and it doesn't sound like an exercise, because it's kind of unpredictable. And what you're gonna do with a very short explanation, but it's probably better to see how I play it. So you ascend one string, you go to the next one, you ascend and descend this higher string, then you descend and descend the lower string, and you ascend the higher one. So if you got confused, I probably would if I watched this. It's just better to hear how it sounds. I'm gonna play it slowly for you, and then you're going to hear it up to speed, just on the 2 strings and then all over the scale. Now another type of pattern that I want to talk about is the Alberti bass. And it's not a scale pattern, but it's actually just a 3-note pattern, or however many notes you can play with, but it's most likely a 3-note pattern, like in the most cases. And it's a classical music approach, but I don't know, I don't care about that. I don't care who invented it. It sounds cool. It almost sounds like neoclassical stuff that Ingve would play. So the idea is this: you take 3 notes, and they are probably like, there is a lowest one, there is a middle one, and there is a highest one. So the Alberti bass is that you play lowest one, highest one, middle one, highest one. So the idea is that you can do this with a few different chord types, and it's actually not limited to any chord types, but you just gotta choose 3 notes of the chord and you can do that. Say for example you're playing I don't know, a C major chord, and you can do the same thing with the Alberti bass, but like you just gotta know the notes. So they are a C, then the third is just an E note, and the fifth is a G note. So here's what you do: you play C, E, G, but in this order: C, G, E, G. Now the more advanced level, it's like the one level above that, is that you can follow, for example, arpeggios or anything that you can think of, like any kind of structure that you know, and you can play Alberti bass over that. So say for example I'm in, let's say, E minor, and I'm gonna play an E minor 7 arpeggio. You already know how to play this, you know the notes, you know how to get the notes, and you probably know the scale shape that you need, the minor scale shape to get the minor 7th chord. So the notes are E, G, B and D. Okay, and the underlying chords, like if we're in E minor, well, for E, it's an E minor, of course. For G, it's a G major. For B, it's a B minor. And for D, it's a D major. So what I would do is I follow the arpeggio, or the chord, it doesn't matter how you think about it. So I play E, the first note is E, and I play the Alberti bass over E minor, because that's the chord. So I play the E minor Alberti bass, then I go to G and I play G major Alberti bass, then I go to B and play B minor Alberti bass, and I go to G and play, I go to D and play D major Alberti bass. And it sounds super exciting, and the listener knows what's happening in terms of the chord progression, and you don't need to think too much about which notes you're gonna play, but you know what you're doing. Like, you're just following the arpeggio and playing Alberti bass. You only need to remember which chords you're gonna play. And finally, a bigger practice pattern that you can use is, it's actually not a practice pattern, I don't know why I said that, but you can use it in scales, like you can use it in solos, you can use it in terms of scales, or even in terms of arpeggios. And many of my theory practice days were just that. I just practiced that for maybe 40 minutes or 1 hour. And what this is that you can play, for example, some, let's say, B Phrygian mode. Like, you just choose a scale, and you go you play all of its modes, 3 notes per string, with just the shape that I showed you in the first module. So you just play some mode, and for example, you ascend the strings using that mode. So you go from the 6th to the 1st using that mode. And then after that, on the way up, you don't just play the same mode again with 3 notes per string, but you actually play the arpeggio that corresponds to that current mode of the scale. So for example, if we're gonna play over G major, well, we're gonna play, let's say, G major, we're gonna ascend, so G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, and so on. And we're gonna ascend the strings with that, 3 notes per string. And then on the way back, we can play, for example, a G major arpeggio or a G major 7 arpeggio. Then we can go, for example, to just don't skip modes, but let's say we're, for example, now on the 3rd mode, and we're gonna play B minor, Q, so we're gonna play the B Phrygian scale, because this is the B Phrygian mode, because this is the 3rd mode of the major scale, of the G major scale. So we're gonna play G major, we're gonna play, G major, but starting from B, so B Phrygian, we're gonna ascend the strings with that, and then on the way back we can play B minor or B minor 7, whichever one you like more. And yeah, it's really cool. It's kind of hard to get used to the scale shapes and the arpeggios, but it really makes the mapping in your brain. Which mode corresponds to which arpeggio. And it's super exciting. It's not boring to practice, and you can use it also in solos. But even if you don't do that, it's just a great technique exercise as well, and you're practicing theory. And this is how you make theory not boring, by the way. You just have to practice something that you like. For example, theory. For me, it's something that you like. For me, it's not really theory, but it's technique. Now I've learned to like theory, but the thing that I usually like to practice is technique, and I target that with some theoretical concepts, like for example this playing 3 notes per string, then playing sweep picking, but I also learn the modes and the arpeggios that correspond to them. So really take the time to get used to all of these, all the scale shape patterns, all of the Alberti based stuff that we talked about, all of the Alberti based over arpeggios also, and just try getting some scale, like playing all of its modes and then playing the arpeggios that correspond to them. You can even go the other way around with the last one. So like you ascend with the arpeggio and you descend with the 3 notes per string. I know it's a good exercise. So take the effort, like put in the effort and make it work for you.